Hey everybody, back with another arcade repair here. Have several GORF boards on the bench today. This is Jack Lick's arcade tech repair journey, whatever. So we're just going to mess with some boards. I actually have my working board set here. It's mostly working. I have a bad custom on the game board in slot B, and I'll show that in a second. I have a quick little harness that I have wired up here, just 5 volts, -5 and +12, and I'm hooked up to composite video pin 27 of the game board. That is wired up to my PVM. So we'll power it up just to show that it works. And it's a little over bright. There is actually some minor glitch. Oh yeah, that's because the B the bad B custom is why it looks like that. But obviously you can tell that it's actually working. So the arcade buffet had dropped off some GORF boards, and I figured we'd start, maybe it's a multi-series, I'm not sure, but we'll start with the ROM boards. So here's a ROM board, says it's bad. We'll test those. We'll test some RAM boards. This board set here actually doesn't have a bottom, so we'll go about testing each card separately, and I'll do them game boards, pattern boards, RAM boards, etc. So that's what we're going to do. Be right back. All right, we're starting with the ROM boards. These are 2 of the loose ROM boards that Arcade Buffet had dropped off. Now these are because you have 2 rows of ROMs. These are domestic US ROM boards. This is the one I pulled out of my cage. This is a foreign board, and all the ROMs go in the top row, and then you have a language ROM that can go, this one's German, that can go in the second row. But this is strapped for 2532s via X31 to X32. I'll link to my research that I did and post it on KLOV forums to explain this a little bit, but I'm not going to go over the strappings. But this board is using 9332 ROMs. This is using 2532 ROMs. You configure X31 to X32 depending on what type of ROM you're using. So the first thing I noticed was that there's a 2532 ROM here. And a 2532 ROM will not work with 9332s when it's strapped for 9332s unless you pull one of the legs out, and obviously that was not done. The other thing I noticed is, hopefully you can see that, these are not in the right order. You can tell that this is actually GORF ROM set 1 because it starts with M872 or 873, whatever. So that is ROM set version 1. Version 2 is a little bit harder, and it also includes some additional tests. And I'm not going to go into the details right there about that, but this is definitely ROM version 1. And it says here 873 whatever, I can't read it, G. So it should be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. These 2 are also in the wrong position. They need to be in these 2 positions here. And again, in my thread, I link to some examples and pictures of that. Now this one is strapped for 9332s, but obviously we're missing ROM, so we'll probably see if we can get enough. But here, to make one good ROM board, there's A, and there's E. I don't know what that one is. It's upside down. Hopefully that wasn't plugged in. That's G, and there's H right there. So the first thing I'm going to do, and there's also RAM right here, there's 2114 RAM. So I'm going to pull the socketed chips, and I'm going to use my Dremel and clean them up. I'm also going to clean the boards and dry them. And then we'll come back and I'll get the Neo-Lock tester out. We'll test the RAM out of circuit, and then we'll go from there. So be right back. That's going to take me about 20-30 minutes. I got all the chips pulled out. every single chip that's socketed I pulled out before cleaning it. And I will tell you, on this board, these RAM sockets suck. Like when I was pulling the RAM out, I almost could have pulled the whole socket out. So anyway, you got to be careful when you're pulling them out. I don't want to replace sockets if I don't have to, but might have to in that case. We'll see. Alright, let me come back and clean these boards. And before doing that, I pulled the 2 ROM boards from the 2 cages. So we'll do 4 boards. This is a foreign board. It has 2532s on it, which was not documented in the manual. So I did document it in. But look at the jumpers. It looks like everything's connected on the jumpers. I don't know. That's kind of, or maybe it's underneath. I'm curious about those jumpers, if it's correct. And then this one is another domestic board. But if you look at the ROMs, let's see where I can find it. There's an E right there. And then it goes F. And then it goes E again. And then H. And there's D right there. M873D. Then there's a A, which should be C. A B, and an A. So yeah, this one I'm gonna remove this one too, and all the RAM there. Might as well, and get the 3 domestic boards going first. All right, while the boards are drying, I'm dremeling the chip legs, and I give credit to Andrew B. That's who I got this idea from. But these 9332s are probably silver plated, and that's why they get real black when they get oxidized and stuff. And I use the Dremel because if a leg is weak, it will break off on the Dremel. Now the Dremel is also going to remove the plating, but I also like to go ahead and soak them in Tarnex because you can't really get the Dremel all the way up, covering the whole chip. So I like to soak the whole chip after doing the Dremel. So, but just to show you, like here's one where hopefully you can see that how black the legs are, except for especially where what's exposed to air, is really bad. And this is noisy, but here's my little Dremel, and then I just kind of go over it like that. And I get the inside of the leg. See that one, that leg just is too weak, right? It just from the pressure of the Dremel, it started to break, and that's all right. Because we'll fix the leg and put it in a different socket or something like that. But you get the idea. All right, I'm busy testing the RAM 2114s with my B&K 864 or LNIC lab prog, and you can see here if I run the test on a couple of these RAM, I get chip enable equals low, so it's probably stuck low. I had that on 2 of these MCM RAM, and every single one of these GTE RAM tested bad. I'm just putting it in here right there. We'll test it. And that says bad device or poor contact on ground. So this might be shorted or something. But I get those for all the GTE RAM. That doesn't mean they're bad. I might still test them in the Neo lock. But they're definitely not testing good in this 864. Which is strange. There was about 8 of these GTE RAM right here. And I don't know if they were all on the same board or not, because I didn't pay attention. Maybe I'll watch the video back and see if I can tell. Yeah, see, so all of these RAMs seem like they're shorted, so that means there might be a short on the board, but I tested that real quick. Let me show you. So I just put it, my meter on ohms, and typically this cap right here, which is like a tantalum cap or something, might go bad, but it's not reading shorted, and this is ground, and that's 5 volts. And we have good, it's not shorted there. And then I tested 5 volts and ground to all the RAM pins, and I did that on all the boards, and they all look good. Let me move this over just a little bit. See, it's probably charging. Go to the, and I should have about 20 microfarads, I think. Oh, that's weird. Oh, I started putting in RAM, so that's probably why it's reading a little bit different. A 1,000 microfarads. Interesting. Between ground and, yeah, with no RAM in, it's 20 microfarads. So the RAM is obviously messing up that reading. Here I have some RAM in. Yeah, so okay, because yeah, there's some RAM in there. Interesting. All right, but anyway, I don't think the board is shorted. I mean, I couldn't tell that it was, and all these caps seem like they're okay. All right, I cleaned all the legs and everything, and out of all those ROMs, I have, I think, one set. There's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, yeah. So I only have enough for one. Those are the ones that are broken, so might have enough after I fix those legs to have two sets, I'm not sure. Well, one set was complete, actually, so... One of the things that's interesting, and I don't know if you can see it because of the shadow there, is you can see this was made in 1980. 50th week HEA, 46th week HEA, 49th week, 47th week, 47, 47, 47, 49. And they have different codes, HEG or HEA. That might be different, you know, facilities or something, I'm not sure. But I'm not going to be able to get, you know, a full matching set. Like, it's not that big of a deal anyway, but having the same ROMs. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Alright, it's time to plug this in. I got the ROMs in, have the RAM in, everything's in. We'll just have to plug it in. And power on. And that doesn't look good. It looks like it's resetting. Something's going on there. So that's bad news. So we don't know if the ROMs are good. I can't read 9332s in my programmer, I don't believe. Because you have to do read them as 2532s and do a jump, a modified socket or something. But what I can do is take out ROM 1. Oh, you can barely see that, but whatever. And put in the GORF test ROM. Now you should be able to put this test ROM should work even though it's strapped, it's a 2532 and it's strapped for 9332s. If it's in the first spot, I think it really doesn't matter. It has to do with one of the read-write lines being high or low or something, I can't remember. But it should work fine. And you can see something, it's jacked up a little bit, but it says GORF Diagnostics version, blah blah blah, Mark Spaeth, press fire for SRAM test. And I believe, if you can see that right there in the bottom left here, this is ground right next to the key. And I think right next to it is fire. No, shit. So I get that weird shit going on. It says SRAM test failed, check chip U2, which is not a RAM chip. That's a 74 LS08. But let me read the directions a little bit, because I don't know if that actually absolutely means U8's bad, but we can check it at least. Alright, can you see that? Oh boy. Hopefully you can see that. Anyway, testing all of the GTE RAM, I think they're GTE, they all test fine in the Neolock. Every single one. And oh, what did I do? Alright, let's power it on. Yeah. Every single one tests fine. Ridiculous glare. But the ones, the MCMs or whatever, I think they're called MCMs or NMCs, I'm not sure, but those tested bad. As you can see there. And I don't know why. There we go. So I might test the other RAM that I have in the board again, but I'm sure they're okay. But for whatever reason, only 2 bad RAM chips, it looks like, so far. Alright, whenever you're getting mixed results, it always helps to have a known good board test. So I put the test ROM in my 2532 there. There we go. So that's in. And we'll power it on. And I know it's difficult to see because it's not through the RGB, but it says press fire for start. Alright. And it says SRAM test failed, check chip U2. And I think that might be because I have a bad B custom there. That might be why that is giving me that error there. And if I test fire again, it should test the DRAM. I'll run this test here for a second. And the DRAM is on the 2 RAM boards right here, this one and this one. DRAM test passed, I think. I don't know why it didn't do that last time, but it's a little whacked out. So anyway, I think that B custom is causing problems. Alright, I was pulling my hair out thinking like, what the hell? So I went and grabbed my working board set from my GORF. Okay, well, it didn't like powering that on. There we go. Alright, so it says, hopefully you can see that, it says, it's difficult because it's black and white, but GORF Diagnostics version blah blah blah, Mark Spath, press SRAM. So I think there was one thing that Mark didn't do, and then a guy on Clove actually patched it so it would read the right protected part of SRAM or something like that, if I remember correctly. But anyway, let me I just burned another test ROM here real quick, and then it says SRAM test in progress, SRAM test passed, and this is on my one of the ROM boards. We don't need to really test the DRAM anyway because that's on my working board set. So let me put this back in my cabinet, grab my test one, and we will test the rest of these ROM boards here. Alright, this is the one I just tested in the other working board set. So I'll put it in my test board set, just like we had, and I'll... Alright, so this is my board. I have my custom B out. You only need the one custom in here. The second one is for, what is it? Does it say if it's X? Yeah, X3 you don't necessarily need in there to boot the game or to do the test ROM. So there you go. It says press fire. Alright, we'll hook up to ground. says SRAM test in progress. SRAM test passed. Alright, so now let me get the one that we had problems with as soon as I put the ROMs in there. So I'm going to pull this one, put my new test ROM in there. Right, there we go. Press fire for testing SRAM. SRAM test in progress. And SRAM test passed. So either one of those ROMs is bad, or we got a problem with like enables or something like that. I don't know. Alright, this is our non-working board, and the RAM tests fine with the test ROM in it, but if I put the game ROMs in there, it's rebooting or watchdogging or something. So it could be the ROMs. Any one of them could be bad. I don't know. Or let's see. I started looking at the schematic, and this X21 through X28, that's the RAM, and that is fed. The enables are fed from A10, A11, A12 through the 74LS138. So if the RAM's good, we know that's good, right? And the data output comes here to this 74LS244, and that's probably working correctly too, I would assume. Well, unless the enables aren't working, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that, yeah, I tested this anyway, it was socketed, so I'm pretty sure that's working, because that's what gets stuff onto the data bus, or into RAM and stuff, from ROM into RAM and stuff like that. So let's see here. So it could be U11 or U12, which is a 74LS138, and that's what's driving the enables of the ROMs. But I think that's pretty much it, unless this U6 or U1 that is driving the enable of the LS244 is messed up. But I'm not, yeah, I mean, because there's not really, it can't be that much more. I mean, it's got to be either the enables or the ROMs, or maybe an associated chip, but I doubt it. There's a 74LS30, so if that doesn't toggle, then this 244 isn't toggling, but it's probably a 244, probably like a bidirectional buffer or something like that, that's letting, you know, data from here go onto the data bus into the RAM and stuff, so it can be read by the CPU. So anyway, I was thinking about it, and I was like, do I want to pull these RAM out, these 9332s? Let's see, actually I'll put it like that. The only difference between a 9332 and a 2532 is pin 18 is high on a 2532. See, it's pulled to 5 volts on a 2532, and it is closed. No, pin 21. Pin 21 is grounded on a 9332, and it's pulled to 5 volts on a 2532. So I could read it as a 2532 by just pulling pin 21 out and grounding it. I could do that. I could also read it as a 2732 by just reversing pin 18, which is typically going to be low when 2732 is being read, with pin 21, and pin 21 with pin 18, which is address 11. So you could read a 9332 as a 2732 by reversing tie pin 18 to pin 21, or in pin 21 to pin 18, or read it as a 2532 if you pull out pin 21 and ground it. That should work. And let's see. But I think what I'd rather do is easier is just put these ROMs into a known working board, and that'll be easier for me to test, and then I'll narrow down the ROMs versus an enable. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, because I was working on 3 ROM boards, right? We know this one passed the RAM test, or the SRAM test with the test ROM in it. This one here, actually said this was the one that had the bad sticker on it, and I wrote bad on it, but I don't know if it's bad. And I fixed the ones that have the dots, the ROMs that have the dots. I basically soldered a capacitor leg onto the ROMs. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4 ROMs that had broken legs, and then I have about, I think, 4 more that are orphans so far. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I fixed the legs on 4 of those chips, and let's put it in and see where we go. And we got GORF. Looks like it's working. Yeah, that looks good. Alright, so the game booted, obviously, and so I will pull these ROMs out and put the other ROM set in. Alright, I swapped the unknown ROMs into the known working, it says bad, but it's actually working, ROM board. So let me put that in. Oh, crap. That takes 2 hands. Alright, let's power it up. And we got resetting going on. So one of those ROMs is bad, so at this point I will probably go ahead and read them and verify them one by one. I also had a spare ROM set that I did not clean the legs yet. This was from one of my old ROM boards because I burned 2532s and 2732s. But I would like to have a 9332 set, so, and we have a board here that needs some ROM, so that's what we're going to do as well. Alright, I'm going to spare you a little bit, but basically what I did is I took a machine socket, cut off pin 23, as you can see there, and then placed the ROM in it, the 9332, and tied pin 21 to ground. And then put it in my system like that, and change my KVM, and then basically under my programmer I did come to device options and disable the insertion test. So if I have the insertion test in there, it's looking to drive that pin 21 high. So if I hit like read, see it says device insertion test failed. So if I go to device options, disable that, and then read it, and then obviously I save the file and then put it on ROM ident. Whoops. Oh yeah, this is the wrong computer. This one's not connected to the internet because it's old. Anyways, where am I at? Got my KVM switch. ROM ident, read it in, and it reads it correctly, verifies it correctly. So this is the E chip, or location X5. So I'm going to do that for all of them and figure out which one's bad. Alright, the very first ROM A was bad, and I'm on. ROM B was good, ROM C I'm on, and it basically failed verifying on its own data. So like you can't verify min-max. I disabled the verify option, and it still doesn't verify on ROM ident. So there's multiple ways chips can go bad. Wrong data, or it can't actually read correctly the data that's in it, stuff like that. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but anyway, that chip's bad. So I got 2 bad ROMs so far. It took me the better part of the day and figuring out that's tedious testing those 9332s one by one like that. It kind of sucks. I actually did mess with my Catbox FPGA, but this GORF board set, like the Astrocade, the address and data bus are multiplexed and stuff between the RAM and the ROM space, and you have the address decoder and the custom addresser and the custom data something. plus the IOs, but I think it's really the CPU board makes it kind of difficult. I tried to mess with it. I couldn't get it to work to read the ROMs with the FPGA cat box. And the test ROM doesn't read the ROMs. Obviously you have to put it, maybe it could read potentially the rest of the ROMs in the other positions besides position 1, but if the RAM tested alright, whatever. I got 2 working. This one is all original 9332s, original sockets, seem to be working okay, and just one chip that I had to replace a leg on, ROM A. And then this one here, basically I'm going to have to replace this one because this is part of my other set, and put a 2532 in there and wire up pin 21 high manually. That's what I think I'm going to do, is replace it with a 2532 and this just jumper pin 21 to high because it's strapped for 9332s. And then this ROM board here is actually giving me some problems even with the test ROM now. So I'm going to end with this one for the evening, but man, this is freaking tedious as shit. See here, see, it's doing that reset thing even with just the test ROM in it, which is like wasn't doing that before. So maybe the sockets or something went wrong with it while I was unplugging and plugging in stuff. Probably should replace the sockets anyway, so I'll probably do it on this board and then clean these ROMs up, test these after I clean them, and then put those in this board. Yeah, so yeah, don't $150 or $200 to fix boards. Come on, it took me all day. It was like 4 or 5 hours doing this. Alright, got a nice double wipe socket in there. I only replaced that one. It's a couple days later when I finally have time to look at this again. So we'll put my test ROM in here, and I know this board works. This is the one that was originally labeled bad down here. I already erased it, that part, but and it was working fine and it passed the tests and all that stuff, but I think just those sockets are not the greatest, and if I'm screwing with it and putting stuff in and out of it, you end up having a problem. Now there we go, we got, obviously it doesn't look ideal because of the black and white setup there, but test screen comes right up, no resetting. It says SRAM test in progress and SRAM test passed. So I'm going to continue to clean the ROMs and fix this ROM board. I'm pretty close to having 3 good ROM boards, so let me finish populating the rest of the ROMs and testing my personal set of 9332s, and I'll be right back. Alright, it took me a couple hours, but I replaced every ROM. I don't know why it takes me so long, but I'll do my little homage to Sean. I haven't cleaned the solder, the flux off yet, but my little homage to Sean at Classic Arcade. Look how pretty those new sockets look. What a great soldering. But seriously, he does such a great job, and I normally wouldn't replace all these sockets because it's a pain in the ass. It takes a lot of time, and if you're doing it for your own board, sure, but if I was doing this for repair work, kudos to Sean, because I wouldn't probably take the time to do that for repairing boards. He does a really great job. Anyway, I only put these ROMs into, gosh, what is that stuff called? Tarnex. And they look nice and shiny. These ROMs came out great just from a little soak, Tarnex soak, and I'm sure it's going to work out fine. Go ahead and plug this in. And I'm rambling a little bit. And let's see what we got. Boom. There is our GORF, and it's working fine with that ROM board. So that's the third ROM board that is working fine. Now this ROM board was working fine. I have the ones with the dots have the fixed legs in it, and I burned a new C, whatever the ABC ROM right here, 2532, but strapped for 9332s. So let's do a little experiment. I don't think this is going to work because pin 21 needs to be tied high, but let's plug it in and find out. Whoops. Pin 21 is supposed to be tied high. Will it work? And it appears that it works fine. Why is that? Pin 21 is not tied low. Which is kind of crazy. I mean, no, pin 21 is tied low right now, but it is working. Kind of wacky, right? Why is that? See, I'm not going to start a game, but I guess I could. I wonder if it'll hit a certain part. I mean, I assume that ROM has been read just to even boot the game. Let me do another experiment. I'm going to pull that chip out. Alright, just to verify, I pulled ROM C out just to see if the game will boot, if that's a good enough test of the ROM working. And nope, it won't work without that ROM in there, so I don't know why, but it works with 2532 even if it's strapped for 9332s. Doesn't make any sense. Why have the different strappings? Right? I don't know. That pin is definitely grounded. I'm gonna pull out that chip, just that chip leg. It might just float high anyway. Curious. Pin 24, 23, 22, 21. 24, 22, 21. Let's see. Now what I was going to do is just pull it out like that and then do a quick jumper from here to that capacitor leg temporary, or you just tie it to the 5 volts, which I can't remember which pin is 5 volts, but probably pin 24. Still works. So I don't know, wacky. But that's it for this video. I don't know if that's a conclusive, test that you can replace a 2532 drop-in replacement for 9332, even though pin 21 is different. Not sure, but it seems to be working. And I always use a 2532 in the first, spot, and it works fine as well. Maybe you can't use 9332s in a board strap for 2532s. That might be possible, but it seems like you can replace a 2532 for 9332. Blah blah blah. That's it, guys. 3 ROM boards repaired, and I will move on into the next video. We got some more troubleshooting, some DRAM cards and stuff. So some GORF repair journey to come up.